fact, we'll talk boxing now, shall we? Because on December the 3rd, talkSPORT will bring you live and exclusive radio commentary of Tyson Fury against Derek Chisora. That's from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. You don't want to miss that. And Dillian Whyte will face Jermaine Franklin. That's going to be on the 26th of November in his first fight since losing to WBC heavyweight champion Tyson Fury earlier this year. We're actually joined by Fabio Wardley now, who's going to fight on the undercard that night against Nathan Gorman. That one was announced a couple of hours ago, Fabio. How long has that fight taken to make? Tell me a bit about that.
Not massively long. It wasn't a particularly hard fight to make. I had my last fight at the end of July, and for the past kind of year or so I was going into it with a bit of an injury which I needed sorted, so I had to get surgery immediately after my last fight to get that fixed up. But we'd already known at that point that this is what was going to happen. It had been kind of mandated by the British Boxing Board as well, that it was me and Nathan next up to fight for the British title. So we knew it was happening. We just kind of had to wait and see and make sure I was all fit, healthy, recovered, and then we got it over the line. But it was easy enough to do.
You're looked after by Dillian Whyte, right?
I am.
So
he is my manager.
What's your relationship with him like? You've had 14 fights. You talked about that, 14 wins, of course. It's such a cliche, but is it one fight at a time, or do you map out that after maybe 20 fights you should be doing this, you should step up to that person should be your opponent, or is it just let's get through this one against Nathan Gorman and then see where we're at?
Kind of. It's a difficult one because, especially with boxing as well, like you can have an overall plan of what you want to do and say, right, in a year or 2 or 2 years, 3 years, whatever, I want to be here, I want to fight for this, I want to do this. But in boxing, different fighters, people lose, and you have to wait and see who's fighting for what and who's got hold of what belt. And then you have to see if you're mandatory, or you have to wait until they vacate it and things like that. So there's only so much you can plan for. The rest you kind of have to assess on a fight-by-fight basis.
Does that make it frustrating, though? Because at times there's no clear path. Because as you said, so many things change, so many governing bodies. Does that make it a little bit frustrating?
Yeah, definitely. It does. It does add to it because you want to just crack on and go down a specific path or whatever, and then, like you saw for a long time before, there was a lot of hold-up at the top of the division with people holding on to belts like AJ, like Usyk, like Fury. And if they don't fight for them, that means the people under them don't get their shot, and then it's a trickle-down effect, and then it moves on to people like me, who I'm waiting for the guy who's next above me to move on and go for his shot so I can go for his belt and things like that. So it does create a bit of a backlog, which is frustrating, but it's just boxing. Unfortunately, you have to work around it.
And to be fair, you would know better than most, because Dillian, of course, had to wait. It felt like years and years and years before he finally got his opportunity. So has he kind of talked to you about that?
Yeah, exactly. He was a prime example of having to really just sit down and wait for your time, and he did it in the right way as well. Because a lot of people just sit still and they don't do anything. They go a bit stagnant and they fall off a bit. Whereas he kept fighting, kept taking chances, kept taking risks, and that's what he said to me. The way he explained it was, look, those situations are going to come up, but it's best for you not to sit still. You need to keep active. So if the fight exactly that you want isn't available, okay, cool, but take the next one over and keep ticking over, because probably ring rust and just general activity is the best thing that you can have at this stage of your career. If you start getting to a high level and then you go flat for a year and then you try jump in at that high level again, you're going to feel a bit shell-shocked by the lights and the big fights and the big shows.
I mentioned Fury against Chisora. You sparred with both of them, right?
Yeah.
So what was that? Let's take one at a time. Let's take Tyson Fury first. What was that? When did that happen? How many rounds you spar with him?
I think I sparred over about 7 or 8 rounds with him.
Okay.
It was only a one-off occasion. It was when he obviously had he won his title the first time around and then had his moment after. So when he was on his comeback period, he had 2 warm-up fights. I can't remember which one it was, but it was over that period of time. So he wasn't at full peak at that point, but he was still just a nightmare to be in there with.
When you're sparring, right, if in a fight you're going 10 out of 10, hell for leather, what are you doing in sparring? What out of 10, where are you at?
It really varies. It varies who you're in with and what you're doing.
Tyson Fury and you.
Fury wants you to go 11 out of 10. He wants you to go 11 out of 10, and he's not wearing a head guard either, because he feels like you're not going to touch him. So he's an interesting character to be in there with. But some people, you'll spar with them and their coach will say, look, we're going to go about half pace today because we want to work on some technical stuff, and then others will really want you to ramp it up all the way to the absolute maximum, because that's how they train and that's how they spar. So it's kind of at the discretion of who's hosting the sparring.
What makes him so good? Like, what's his skill set that makes him, of course, one of the best, if not the best, on the planet?
He has body mechanics that he shouldn't have. for a guy of that size. He's 6'7"-ish, 6'8" maybe, 19 odd stone. But yeah, he's got feet like a kind of super middleweight. He's light on his toes. He's got a lot of bounce. He has a lot of energy. He's got really long limbs, and he's got a really good upper body movement, which just makes it it makes it difficult to get to him in the first place because he's got long limbs. And then once you do get in there, he can either back out if he likes because he's got nice, light, quick feet, or he can just stand there and move his head, bob, flip his shoulders, and just get out of the way of half of your shots. And then bounce off again and restart the whole cycle again. And you're on the end of his jab, just getting pinged in the head 5 or 6 times before you get anywhere near him. You make it in there, and then he's gone on the other side of the ring, and you're like, hang on, have a word.
Did you catch him at all?
Yeah, I did. I did catch him a few times. Don't get me wrong. I pinned him and got him into the corner a few spots and stuff, but at that point, that was a good maybe 3-4 years ago, so nothing massively to trouble him, but enough to let him know I was there at least.
And what do you make of that matchup, Fury against Chisora?
Don't get me wrong, when Chisora's involved at least, and probably Fury as well, to be honest, they're always interesting characters. So it's always going to be an interesting fight, but is it the fight that everyone wants? No, to be honest.
Why do you think AJ didn't happen?
It's a lot more, it's very complicated. Like, the way Fury was going about trying to press that fight to happen on a certain date at a certain time, has to be ready by then or it's no deal, then that's just not how those fights get made. They need a lot more time, but especially with those two, they're two like absolute megastars of the division. They're on separate broadcasts, which means then the broadcasts have to come to an agreement of who's going to show it, how we're going to do this. Those takes meetings after meetings after. It's not a quick conversation. Are you going to have it? Yeah. You give me a tenner, and then I'll sort you on the back end. That's not how it goes. It takes a lot more. So for you to be that restrictive on things, it wasn't never going to happen. Doesn't mean never, never. It just means it needs a lot more time.
What fight do you want to see at the top end of the division, and who, in your opinion, is the best at the top end of the division?
I think Usyk for me is the best. He's
Tyson Fury.
Yeah, I have a lot of admiration for the sweet science as well of him and the way he clinically deals with people, and the way his brain and stuff. I was fortunate enough to spend a lot of time with him, sparring him in Ukraine and stuff. So I've been around him on a more of a closer level, and watching him train and stuff, and the way he goes about his business was very interesting to me. But he's definitely probably one of the ones that I'd hold up there. Sorry. For the top spot.
Is there anyone you wouldn't fight at the moment? Not because obviously you think you might get beat, but just maybe because it's too early in your career. And the reason I ask that is when I was growing up as a kid, keeping that 0 record was just immense. But now it seems that it's not that important. It doesn't really matter if you lose your 0.
Yeah, probably my mum. I probably wouldn't fight her. She's pretty dangerous when she wants to be.
Like left hook, right?
Yeah.
Clean your room up
She's
now,
clipped
Fabio.
me around the ear a couple of times, and I've gone, hang on. If anyone else saw this, my knee's gone a bit. But no, not at the moment, because like you say, it's not such a massive thing that it was in the past. That was kind of the Floyd Mayweather era of, I've got my own, no one can take it, etc., etc. And that's kind of fed through to the levels. Whereas now, prime example, Derek Chisora. He's had 11, maybe 12 losses now.
12, I think it is.
12 losses on his record. Yeah, he's fighting for a world title. So
that's crazy, isn't it? And he's 38 years old.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And he just loves it. He can't. He can't. I don't know when he'll ever stop or if he'll ever stop. Like in the boxing community, we say has to be his last year. He's got to get. And then after his next fight, he's like, nope, I'm back out. I'm going again. And we're just like, mate, you can have a day off. It's all right. Like, but it's a different time now. So you can lose as long as you give a good account of yourself. As long as you stick yourself in a good fight with a good level opponent and you put yourself on the line kind of thing, and you can come out, you might not get your hand raised, but you'll still get the respect of, yeah, you know what, you gave it a go. You can another go around.
Where does Deontay Wilder fit into this equation for you?
He's still there. He's still in that top 5, top 6. There's no way to completely rule him out. He has that wow factor of that devastating right hand. It's just there. It doesn't matter who he faces, who he gets in with. That can trigger anyone and put you to sleep at any minute of any moment. Like he famously says, you can be right for 12 rounds. I only have to be right for 1 second just to clock you. I only need to catch you once at the right time and you'll be asleep. And you've seen him do it time and time again. So that's a serious factor.
talkSPORT Drive with Andy Goldstein. Monday to Friday afternoon from 4 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.